Her wrinkled fingers gripped the doorframe. Her whole body shook. 20 bikers stood in the snow, engines growling in the dark. Their eyes locked on her, sharp, unblinking, like predators waiting for a signal. The freezing wind tore at her shawl. She didn't move. She didn't even breathe too loud. Fear pressed down on her chest like a stone. She thought of her husband, gone 2 winters ago. Death had already taken him. Now it felt like death had come back. And this time it was knocking on her door. Not one biker spoke. Not one flinched. Their silence was heavier than the storm, heavier than the grief she carried alone in that cabin. She tried to close the door, just an inch. Boots crunched on ice. The leader stepped forward, his shadow swallowing the golden light of her home. Her lips trembled. Her voice cracked. Please, not tonight. But tonight was only the beginning. By dawn, 1,000 more would arrive, carrying a request so unthinkable it would rip open the truth she never knew about the man she buried. The leader stopped at the door, his boots pressed into the snow, slow and steady. The other bikers held their ground, shoulders squared, eyes fixed on the widow. Eleanor's voice cracked again. What do you want from me? The man didn't answer right away. He tilted his head, studying her as if weighing something far heavier than words. The engines roared behind him, then cut off one by one until the valley fell into silence. Only the wind carried through the trees. Ma'am, the leader finally said, his tone rough but calm, we're not here to harm you. Her hand tightened on the doorframe. Then why are you here? Why tonight? The man glanced back at the row of bikers. They shifted, restless. He looked her dead in the eye. Because we had no place else to go. Her heart thudded so loud she thought they could hear it. Before we dive deeper into this unbelievable night, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for what happens next. Eleanor swallowed hard. No place else to go, she whispered. The man's jaw tightened. Storms coming down from the mountains. Roads are blocked. We needed shelter. Just for tonight. Her eyes darted from one face to the next. Scarred men, hard stares, leather patched with skulls and fire. They looked like trouble, like the kind of men her late husband had warned her about. You expect me to believe that? She asked. The man stepped closer. His breath smoked in the air. Believe what you want, but we're here, and we ain't leaving. Her knees trembled. She wanted to slam the door, lock every bolt, pray they'd ride away. But something in his voice held her still. A weight, a truth she couldn't place. One night, the man said again, softer now, almost pleading. The widow's chest rose and fell. The storm outside howled against the walls, and in that moment, Eleanor realized she had only 2 choices: shut them out and face what might come, or let the darkness in and pray it didn't swallow her whole. Eleanor's hand hovered on the lock. Her heart pounded so hard it drowned out the storm outside. One night, that's all we ask, Jack said again. His voice wasn't threatening, it carried something heavier, wariness. Eleanor's throat tightened. And if I say no? Jack's jaw clenched. He didn't answer at first. The men behind him shifted in the snow, leather creaking, breath smoking in the cold. Finally, Jack's voice cut through the silence. Then we'll freeze out here, ma'am. That's the truth of it. Her grip trembled on the doorframe. She stared into the dark faces outside. One man rubbed his arm, wincing as though hurt. Another lowered his head, clutching something small, a stuffed bear, its fur ragged and wet from the snow. She swallowed. You're not here to rob me? Jack's eyes met hers, steady. No, ma'am. Just shelter. Food, if you're willing, but we'll take nothing you don't offer. Her breath fogged in the air. Why should I trust you? Jack took a slow step forward. The floorboards creaked under Eleanor's hand as she braced herself to slam the door, but his voice was low, calm. Because my word is all I've got left. Inside the cabin, the fire snapped in the stove. The warmth licked at her back, pulling her in. Outside, the cold pushed harder, seeping into her bones. And standing between them, Eleanor thought of her husband. 2 winters gone. A mechanic, a soldier, a man who never turned away someone in need. She closed her eyes for a moment. She could almost hear him say, Ellie, sometimes you have to open the door, even when you're afraid. Her eyes opened. One night, no trouble. Jack gave a short nod. No trouble. The door creaked wider. Warm light spilled across the snow as the men filed in, one by one. Boots hit the wooden floor. Water dripped from their jackets. The smell of gasoline and smoke mixed with the scent of burning pine. Eleanor's chest tightened. She clutched the rosary in her pocket as the room filled with leather and shadows. One of the younger bikers, wiry and pale, paused near the door. He tipped his head respectfully. "Thank you, ma'am." Eleanor didn't answer. She backed toward her chair by the fire, her eyes never leaving Jack. Jack raised his hand. "Sit." His voice carried authority, steady and sharp. The men obeyed without hesitation, lowering themselves onto the floor, the benches, anywhere space allowed. The cabin seemed smaller now. The firelight danced against their faces, carving deep lines and scars into the silence. Eleanor's voice was thin but steady. "What kind of men ride through a storm like this?" Jack leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. His eyes stayed fixed on her. "The kind with nowhere else to go." Her breath caught. She wanted to ask more, but fear held her tongue. Still she pressed. "And when the storm clears?" Jack's gaze didn't waver. His tone was softer now, but carried a weight that cut straight to her chest. "That depends, ma'am. Because we're not the only ones on this road tonight." Eleanor's stomach twisted. Her hand slipped from the chair, steadying herself. "What do you mean?" Jack sat back. He didn't answer right away. The men around him exchanged looks. One shook his head. Another muttered under his breath. Finally Jack said it. "By morning there'll be more. A lot more." Eleanor's heart thudded in her ears. She looked to the frosted window. Beyond the glass, the night stretched black and endless. She strained her ears, and in the distance, faint and low, came the growl of more engines crawling up the mountain road. She whispered, "Lord, have mercy." The fire cracked. The bikers sat in silence. And Eleanor Hayes, 78 years old, widow, alone in the Montana woods, realized her night of fear was only beginning. The cabin was warm, but Eleanor's hands were ice. Her rosary pressed hard into her palm, every bead digging against her skin. She didn't dare let go. Jack sat across the room, his voice steady. "We're grateful you opened the door. Truly. You didn't have to." Eleanor's reply was cold. "I still might regret it." From the corner, Razor let out a low laugh. "She already does." Jack shot him a hard look. "Razor." The younger man leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "She thinks we're saints, Jack. We're not saints." Eleanor's voice rose. "Then what are you? Tell me that. What exactly have I let into my house?" The room went still. The fire popped in the stove. Finally Jack said, "Men who've lost too much. Men trying to keep moving so the past doesn't eat us alive." Eleanor's lip trembled. "You think that makes me feel safe? I'm a woman alone, and 20 of you show up at my door in the middle of the night. What would you have thought if you were me?" No one answered. The silence sat heavy. Then a cough broke it. One biker pressed his sleeve to his arm. Dark spots hit the floor. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "You're bleeding." The man shook his head. "It's fine. Fine? You're dripping on my boards." She grabbed an old rag, thrust it at him. Her voice cracked. "Press it. Hard." The biker hesitated. Jack nodded. The man obeyed. As Eleanor hovered, she caught his eyes. Hollow, worn. The look of someone carrying more than wounds. "Where did it happen?" she asked. "Fallujah," he muttered. "Came back, but not all of me." Eleanor's throat closed. She thought of her husband, how war had marked him too. She stepped back, unable to speak. Another man shifted. From his coat, he placed something on the table. Small, brown. Eleanor stared. "A toy?" The man's voice cracked. "My daughter's. She didn't make it out when the house burned." The room went silent again. The teddy bear sat in the firelight, its ear half gone, its fur stained. Eleanor's hand shook against her chest. "Why bring that here?" she whispered. "Because it's all I've got left," he said. For the first time, Eleanor felt her anger bend. Her fear remained, but her heart softened. Just an inch. Still, she pressed. "And the rest of you? What's your story?" A heavy voice from the back answered. "No story worth telling, ma'am, only graves." Another spoke up. "My brother didn't come home from Kandahar. Mine overdosed last spring, couldn't beat it." The voices stacked, one after another. Loss, brokenness, the kind of truth that made Eleanor's chest ache. But Razor cut through it. "Don't let them fool you. You think all of us are poor souls down on luck? Some of us aren't so clean." Eleanor's eyes snapped to him. "And you? What are you running from?" Razor smirked. "A past that won't let me breathe, and a lawman that won't stop looking." Jack's tone was sharp. "Enough." "No," Eleanor shot back. Her voice carried heat. "If I'm to keep you here, I need the truth. All of it. Razor leaned forward, the firelight painting sharp lines on his face. The truth? The truth is we don't belong anywhere, and when the rest get here, you'll see why. Her heart sank. The rest? Jack exhaled, slow and heavy. More riders. They've been on the road all day. By morning, this valley will be full. Eleanor's legs weakened. She gripped the back of her chair. How many? He didn't answer. How many, Jack? Her voice was almost a shout. Jack's gaze held hers. Hundreds, maybe more. Her breath hitched. She staggered to the window, pulled back the curtain. At first, only darkness. Then, low, distant, the growl of engines. 1, then 2, then 5. Headlights cut faint lines through the storm, weaving up the mountain road. Eleanor whispered to herself, "Dear God, what have I done?" The engines drew closer. The sound multiplied, rolling through the valley like thunder. Inside, Razor grinned. "Told you she'd regret it." Eleanor spun, her fear spilling into anger. "You bring them all here, into my home? What do you want from me?" Jack stood slowly. His shadow stretched long against the wall. His voice was firm. "We're not here to harm you, Eleanor, but when the morning comes, you'll understand why we rode." Her hands shook at the curtain. She stared out again. More lights now. Dozens. The storm swallowed and revealed them, one after another, like a parade of ghosts. Her voice broke into the silence. 1,000 men, outside my house, and I let the first 20 in. She pressed her hand against the glass. Her breath fogged the window. The growl of engines swelled louder, closer, heavier. And with tears in her eyes, Eleanor Hayes whispered the words that carried through the quiet cabin. "Lord, save me from what I've let inside." The first light of dawn crept over the ridge. Gray mist clung to the valley. And when Eleanor pulled back the curtain, her breath left her body. Outside, the world had changed. The snow-covered road was gone, buried under a sea of chrome and leather. Row after row of motorcycles stretched out beyond sight, engines growling low like a living beast. 1,000 riders, men and women, faces scarred, hardened, unbroken, all of them waiting. All of them staring at her cabin. Her knees weakened. She whispered, "Dear Lord, there are too many." Jack stepped beside her. His face was grave. "They came, just like I told you." Eleanor's voice cracked, thick with fear. "Why? Why here? Why me?" Jack didn't move. "Not for you, ma'am, for him." Her head snapped toward him. "My husband." Jack gave a slow nod. "Yes." She staggered back, pressing a hand against her chest. "He's been gone 2 winters, buried in the frozen ground. Why say his name now?" Jack's tone dropped low. "Because we never buried what he gave us." The room went still. The bikers inside shifted, exchanging glances. Eleanor's lips trembled. "You're not making sense. Tell me straight. Why are you here?" Jack's jaw tightened. He looked her dead in the eye. "We're here because your husband saved us." The words hung heavy, rattling louder than the engines outside. Eleanor shook her head, voice rising. "Saved you? He was a mechanic, a simple man. He fixed trucks. He fixed tractors." He fixed more than that," Jack cut in. His voice sharpened, carrying authority. "He fixed us. When we had nowhere to go, he gave us shelter. When our bikes broke down, he fixed them, free of charge. When the law cornered us, he spoke for us, put his own name on the line." Eleanor's breath faltered. She sank slowly into her chair. He never told me." Jack stepped closer. "That's because he didn't do it for thanks. He did it because he remembered what it was like to be forgotten." One of the men at the table spoke up, voice raw. "He saved my brother when the army left him stranded, kept him from going under." Another added, "He gave me work when no shop in town would even let me through the door." A third, "I was strung out, ready to end it. Your husband said, 'Don't quit on yourself, son.' I didn't. I'm standing here because of him." Eleanor's eyes darted from face to face. Each voice piled heavier on her heart. "Stop," she whispered. But the voices didn't stop. "He bought me food when I was starving. He pulled me out of jail when no one else cared. He told me I wasn't trash, first man to say that to me in years." Eleanor's tears spilled, hot against her cheeks. She pressed her hands to her face, shaking. "All these years, and I never knew." Jack crouched down in front of her. His voice softened. He never bragged. He never asked for recognition. He just lived like every man mattered. Her sobs filled the silence. "Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he share this part of himself with me?" Jack's tone was steady. "Because he didn't want you to worry. He knew the risks, but he also knew what it meant to serve, and he never stopped serving." The fire snapped behind them. The bikers inside lowered their heads in respect. Jack stood tall, then signaled to his men. Two bikers carried something in, heavy and covered with a black cloth. They set it down gently in front of Eleanor. Jack gripped the cloth. He paused. His voice carried like a promise. "This is for him, and for you." He pulled the cloth away. A motorcycle gleamed in the light of dawn. Black steel, polished chrome, every inch crafted with care. Across the tank, in silver engraving, was her husband's name. Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Her fingers trembled as she reached out, tracing the letters. Her voice broke. He would have loved this." Jack's voice lowered, almost reverent. "It's yours now, from all of us. A tribute to the man who never turned us away." The cabin shook as the engines outside thundered to life in unison. 1,000 machines roaring together, so loud it rattled the windows and shook the walls. Then, as if on cue, the roar cut to silence. Every rider sat still, helmets lowered, heads bowed. Eleanor stared, her chest heaving, tears streamed down her face. "I thought I lost him, but he's here. He's in all of you." Jack lowered his head. "He never left, ma'am. Not for us, not for you." The silence outside was holy. 1,000 strangers, no, 1,000 brothers and sisters, stood united in honor of a man she thought she knew. Eleanor sobbed openly, the grief and pride colliding inside her. She whispered, "I was his wife, and even I didn't know the size of his heart." Jack placed a hand on the custom bike. "Now you do. And now the whole world does." The sun broke over the ridge, spilling light across the valley of riders. Chrome gleamed. Leather shone. Steam rose from the ground like smoke from an altar. And Eleanor Hayes, a widow who thought her life had ended with her husband's passing, sat in her cabin surrounded by the proof that his life had never truly left. Not in the machines. Not in the storm, but in the 1,000 souls who carried his memory on the open road. The sun edged higher over the mountains, its light spilling gold across the frozen valley. Frost still clung to the trees, but in that moment, everything seemed alive. The smoke, the breath of men, the glint of chrome. Inside the cabin, Eleanor sat motionless, her hands pressed against her lap. For hours, she had been trapped in fear, but now a different weight filled her chest. A weight she couldn't name. Jack's voice broke the silence. "They're waiting, ma'am." She looked at him, eyes swollen from tears. "Waiting for what?" "For you," he said softly. "For your words." Her voice cracked. "I've got no words left." Jack shook his head. "You've got more than you know. They rode across this country for him, and for you. Don't let them leave without hearing you." Eleanor stared at the floor. Her husband's name burned in her mind. She thought of nights alone at the kitchen table, whispering prayers into the silence. She thought of the folded flag resting on her mantle. And now outside 1,000 men and women sat in silence, holding pieces of him she never knew. Her frail hands pushed against the armrests of her chair. She rose slowly, every step deliberate. She reached the door, heart pounding. When she opened it, the sound of the valley swallowed her whole. 1,000 riders, lined shoulder to shoulder. Engines idling low, vibrating through the ground. Leather vests, patched jackets, helmets in every color, but every eye fixed on her. Eleanor stepped out onto the porch. The cold bit her skin, but her fear was gone. The weight of grief still sat heavy, but it no longer owned her. She gripped the railing, raised her chin. Her voice carried, weak at first but steadying as it left her chest. "You gave me back a piece of him tonight." The valley stilled. Then Jack lifted his hand. Engines roared to life, every last one. The sound hit like thunder rolling down from the mountains, shaking snow from the pines, rattling the cabin behind her. Eleanor pressed her hand to her chest. Tears filled her eyes, but they were tears of pride. "Thank you," she whispered into the storm of engines. When the noise cut, silence fell again. A silence thick with reverence. Her voice rose once more, this time strong. "He lives in you, every one of you. Don't let that light die." A murmur rippled through the crowd. A rider near the front lifted his hand to his heart. Another called out, his voice rough with emotion. "We won't, ma'am. We ride for him now." Another shouted, "And for you." The engines rumbled in response, like a chorus. Jack stepped onto the porch beside her. "You're not alone anymore. Not today. Not ever again." Eleanor shook her head, tears spilling. "I don't deserve this." "Yes, you do," Jack replied, "because you shared him with us. And now we share ourselves with you." From the crowd, a voice rang out. "We'll check in on you, ma'am." Another followed. We'll fix this place up. Roof, windows, whatever you need. One more. Food, wood, medicine. We'll bring it all. The promises came like waves, echoing through the crowd. Eleanor covered her mouth, sobbing openly. You don't know what this means to me. Jack leaned in, his voice low but firm. We know exactly what it means, because he meant it to us first. Eleanor's legs trembled, but she stood taller than she had in years. She raised her hands toward the valley. Then I have family again. The crowd erupted. Engines roared in unison, louder than before, a sound so massive it seemed to crack the sky. The mountain itself trembled under the weight of their tribute, and in that roar, Eleanor heard her husband's laugh, not fading, not gone, living. The sound cut once more. The stillness returned. But this time, the silence was no longer empty. It was full, alive, sacred. Jack gestured to the custom bike gleaming on her porch. Ride it if you want, or just keep it close. But know this, every year, we'll ride back, in his honor, in yours. Eleanor placed her hand on the tank. Her husband's name shone in the morning sun. Her voice broke. You never left me, Thomas. You just left me more than I could carry alone. The engines roared again, one final tribute. The valley shook with their thunder. Snow slid from the cabin roof. Birds scattered into the rising sky. And in that sound, raw, fierce, unbroken, Eleanor Hayes found her peace. The sun melted frost from the branches, light spilling across the crowd of riders. They had come as strangers. They left as her family. Eleanor smiled through her tears, leaning gently against the engraved bike. For the first time in years, her heart felt full. Her husband's legacy had not died. It had multiplied, and the mountains would never forget the roar that carried his name. The valley was quiet again. The riders were gone, their thunder fading into the horizon. Only the smell of exhaust and the memory of engines lingered in the cold morning air. Eleanor stood on her porch, her hand still resting on the engraved bike. For a long moment she stayed there, staring down the mountain road, whispering to herself, Thomas, they carried you back to me. The wind stirred. Snow melted off the roof in heavy drops, landing in the mud below. The silence wasn't empty now. It was full. Jack's words echoed in her mind. You're not alone anymore. And for the first time in years, she believed it. Her voice carried one last time, as if speaking to the riders though they were already miles away. Thank you, every one of you. The cabin door creaked as she stepped back inside. The fire still burned. The bike still gleamed. And the woman who had once thought she was nothing more than a lonely widow now felt the weight of 1,000 hearts carrying her husband's name. But let me ask you something. What would you have done if 1,000 bikers showed up at your door? Would you have opened it? Or would you have shut them out? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read them. And before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more unbelievable stories just like this one. Share this video with a friend who loves a wild ride, and join us again for the next story that will leave you breathless. Because sometimes the most ordinary places hide the most extraordinary truths.